A jury in Michigan has reached a verdict in the case of James Crumbley, the father of the Oxford High School shooter. Let's go to the courtroom of the trial and listen in.
I will also be issuing an order that will obviously not be made public in the courthouse until tomorrow morning. In addition, case number 22-27998-9 FH, the People versus James Crumbley, the same thing. The order restricting pretrial publicity was entered on July 14th, 2022, and that order will also be set aside as of the reading of the verdict. Are you ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. All rise to the jury.
We are waiting to hear the verdict in the trial of Michigan father Jason Crumbley, charged in his son's deadly school attack. The jury deliberating tonight. We know that weeks ago, another jury finding his wife guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Again, we are awaiting the verdict in the Jason Crumbley case, again charged in his son's deadly school attack. That school in Michigan, Oxford High School. Let's pause and take a listen.
Each count?
Sure.
Count 1, involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin. Count 2, involuntary manslaughter as to Tate Muir. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Tate Muir. Count 3, involuntary manslaughter as to Hannah St. Juliana. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Hannah St. Juliana. Count 4, involuntary manslaughter as to Justin Schilling. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Justin Schilling.
Thank you, foreperson. I'm going to ask that Ms. Williams poll the jury. So she's going to ask you each.
Jury in seat number 1, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 2, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 3, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 4, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 6, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 7, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 8, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 9, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 11, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 12, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes, it is.
Jury in seat number 13, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 14, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I know how hard this has been on all of you just by reading your face. I know this has been a very hard decision. We appreciate your time. I'm going to ask you to return to the jury room, and I'll be there with you in a few minutes, all right?
All rise to the jury.
You heard it there. The trial of Michigan father Jason Crumbley, charged in his son's deadly school attack. The jury deliberating tonight and finding him guilty on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. I want to bring in Trevor Ault, who has been on this story for quite some time from the beginning. Trevor, what do you make of all of this? Was this expected?
Well, it was a little bit difficult to imagine, Stephanie, that you would have only the mother found guilty in this case, but there were definitely some nuances with the fact that these trials were separate, and there wasn't as much evidence introduced in the trial of James Crumbley as there was against his wife. In fact, I found it quite fascinating that this jury deliberated over the course of 2 days. They stayed past when court usually closes at 4:30 because they must have been close to reaching this verdict, but they deliberated for almost the exact same total amount of time as Jennifer Crumbley's verdict did, almost 11 hours. And even though the fact that this trial proceeded much faster than her trial did, only a matter of a few days, while hers stretched almost 2 weeks, it's clear that this jury, just like the last one, found that ultimately James Crumbley was responsible, criminally responsible, by not stopping this shooting, by ignoring all of those warning signs of his son's deteriorating mental health, by buying him that weapon. And also my main takeaway, Stephanie, is that this is going to make an appeal much harder. James Crumbley, while his attorney did make the same kinds of arguments that Jennifer Crumbley's attorney did, he took a different tack in that he decided not to take the stand in his own defense. Jennifer Crumbley, of course, did do that. A lot of people thought she was going to try to appear as a sympathetic mother, but afterwards felt she might have hurt her chances by testifying that, looking back, she wouldn't do anything differently. The fact that James Crumbley doesn't take the stand in his own defense, that some of the evidence that was used against her, text messages in which their son texted his mother that he was seeing demons and spirits at home that she ignored. He followed up saying, please respond. Can you at least text back? She ignored that, too. That was used by prosecutors to prove that she was literally ignoring his cries for help. That evidence was not allowed against James Crumbley, and they still found this enough evidence to convict him on these 4 unprecedented counts of involuntary manslaughter. What this tells me is that we are now in a new day in how America responds to mass shootings and school shootings, given the fact that now we have these 2 parents, the first in American history, held criminally liable for their child's school shooting.
Unprecedented indeed. As you mentioned, for the parents of a school shooter to be found guilty, we have not seen that before. Joining us now is University of Baltimore School of Law professor and ABC News legal contributor Kim Whaley. Kim, what do you make of this verdict, finding him guilty of involuntary manslaughter on all counts, but not just him, his wife as well?
Well, it's not really a surprise given that we saw the verdict with the wife. That was really the watershed moment, and it's a watershed moment for families and parents when it comes to guns. I think what's interesting here is that Michigan amended its gun laws after this tragedy to now require that there be some safety mechanisms by law in the home. So essentially what this verdict, both of these verdicts are saying is that the jury of these parents' peers are holding them accountable for not essentially implementing at home what across the country in many states our legislatures are not willing to do. But I think with respect to Mr. Crumbley here, the defense argument was he just didn't know. He didn't know his son was this dangerous. And I suspect the jurors saw through that. That's not okay for a parent to have no idea that your child is on the verge of this kind of mass murder.
And Kim, Trevor touched on this. The Crumbleys are the first parents to even be charged. What could this mean for future mass shooting cases?
Well, you know, if legislatures don't step up and start protecting people by law, listen, I mean, I doubt these people would have put a 12-year-old behind the wheel of a car because we've got rules around the age in which you can drive a car. If we had these kind of laws across the country, we might not see this kind of negligence and this kind of recklessness. But it does send a message that prosecutors might pick this up and start holding parents accountable for not just negligence, not just child neglect. We've seen that prior to here, but actually being responsible for the death, for like manslaughter, as if they participated in the events that led up to these 4 tragic deaths. That's a real different argument that these prosecutors managed to persuade these juries of than but you know, negligence, aiding and abetting, this kind of thing. Parents are now going to have to pay attention, and hopefully, as I said, legislators will pay attention and see, listen, people do want sensible laws or sensible restraints, disincentives, which is what this is, disincentives for treating guns like you know, it's any other thing in your home and doesn't have the kind of deadly outcomes that the statistics demonstrate. You're much more likely to have a death by suicide if you own a home or own a gun than you are to see a gun used against an intruder to save a life. So maybe it'll wake parents up, Americans up, to the fact that these are deadly weapons and they need to be handled with extreme care. Or you can see, I mean, these 2 parents are going to go to jail along with their son.
Thanks so much, Kim. I want to go to Trevor one last time. Trevor, what's next for Jason Crumbley and his wife?
So now we head to the sentencing phase for both of them, Stephanie, and we know that Jennifer Crumbley, having already been convicted, her sentencing had been put on hold for at least a little while. That's scheduled for next month. They're both now guilty on these 4 charges of involuntary manslaughter. Each of those counts carries a maximum of 15 years in prison. It's highly likely that those sentences would be served concurrently. So technically, there's a maximum of 60 years in prison for this couple. More likely, the maximum will be around 15, and they may not even serve that many. But you have to consider the fact that they've already spent more than 2 years in jail. Jennifer Crumbley testified that the couple has not spoken to one another since the day they were arrested, in which they, according to prosecutors, went on the run after the first charges were announced back in December of 2021. And I do want to note, as we talk about the fact that, this is unprecedented, the first parents charged, this was, and this is according to the prosecutor, very special circumstances, unique gross negligence, according to the prosecutors who first filed the charges. They were very clear that they weren't charging James and Jennifer Crumbley because they were just bad parents. They felt that this was so egregious, buying the weapon in the days before the shooting, getting called into the school the day of the shooting, declining to take him home even though he had drawn the gun that they had bought him, a person who was shot. He wrote blood everywhere. He wrote, "The thoughts won't stop, help me." In the days leading up to the shooting, he was caught in class searching ammunition on his phone. They called his mother. She laughed it off, texted him, "I'm not mad, LOL, you have to learn not to get caught." The prosecutor said they were not trying to set a new precedent here where all parents are guilty if their child commits a crime. They were saying this was so egregious that it had to be criminal, and it turns out now 2 separate juries agree with them, Stephanie.
They certainly do, and hopefully the families of those lost can find some healing and justice in all of this. Trevor Altforest reporting on this. Thank you so much for those updates, and thank you to our legal contributor, Kim Whaley, as well.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.